Hi, everyone, and welcome to the final week of Hangouts. I guess this is the last week of Hangouts as part of Contextual Electronics Session 1B. We have we've done a lot of Hangouts now, at least 16, I think. So we've doubled up some weeks. I think it's balanced out because I missed one week, but it's been a lot of fun. We've been getting together. We talk about our progress, and we're gonna do that today as well. Obviously, I'm in a different location, but the nice thing is that because of technology, we're able to still get together, even in disparate time zones and everything else. And I am appreciative. Obviously, Pedro comes from, sometimes people show up at 2, 3 in the morning their time, so I do appreciate that. So it's great that we've had a lot of chances to get together. So today we have Brooke, Margaret, and Pedro, and we might have 1 or 2 hangers-on that join in after the fact. And so let's go on down the line. And Brooke, why don't you start and let us know how your progress is going?
I got my current source testing done today and some videos done, so I need to get those posted, and I'm on to the headers for the Arduino. Video-wise, I've only got about 4 left. I've been keeping up video-wise, just not actually getting real work done, if you will. But the nice thing is I've gotten to see all the mistakes being made, so I know what gotchas to watch out for.
Right. And if people don't know, so if people are watching this after the fact, Brooke has been making a lot of really great videos. Brooke, what's your YouTube channel name?
Oh, I don't even, maybe Hedrick BT or something like that. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, that's your usual name. Yeah, so it is great videos, kind of like great supplemental content as well. You can go through and see Brooke's progress, nice photography, nice transitions, that kind of stuff. So I really do appreciate that. I'm really glad that you and Dave has been doing the stuff on the site and everything. So the community component and helping each other out has been really great. So I appreciate that.
Thanks. And I think if you search YouTube for contextual electronics, you'll probably find the stuff I put out there.
Okay, great. Margaret, how are you doing?
I am mute. No, I'm not on mute. Okay, so I am behind the curve, or not in front of the curve, or not where I should be. So I need to go look at Brooke's videos and make some progress because I still need to put the crystal in for the DAC and start doing that test. I did small things, just installed embed Xcode because I'm interested in trying Xcode IDE instead of using the Arduino IDE. And
what's it called? Xcode?
Embed Xcode. Basically, this guy came up with a template that works with Xcode, which is the IDE coming from Apple. So if you're doing iOS development, what's really nice about using that instead of Arduino is it's got a really nice, sophisticated. So once you type in pin, and it'll go pin mode and give you it'll do the fill outs, and it's a much more sophisticated IDE than what we have with the Arduino.
Okay.
And since it's used by iOS, it's a lot simpler. And so there was one guy, I don't know who, was using it. So I thought, okay, finally I'll break down and try it. And I had trouble because the library anyway, there was some trouble installing it, but it seems to be working as a template for Xcode, so that should be a good environment to do Arduino. So I need to look at Brooke's stuff, I need to look at Tommy's stuff, and basically I keep my head down in shame because I should be farther along. That's about it.
Well, so if people don't know, Margaret's also been, so I've been working with her, she's part of the extra group, and so her and I have also been working on a project that, I've been helping advise her on a project she's been working on, and that's been an interesting thing as well, is kind of seeing, how people try and balance the course against other stuff as well, and so it's been great, interacting as well. We get a chance to meet once a week privately as well, so that obviously takes a lot of time. So
yeah, I should confess, what I spent a lot of time was on focusing on the EC, which is the conductivity circuit for measuring conductivity within salts in water, and so I did a blog post on that, and then the guy Ryan Sparky's widget read it, so it looked accurate, and from the course, what was cool was, I did the beam bridge, or however you pronounce the guy's name, oscillator, understood that, broke out why he used a voltage divider to then feed it into the gain amp, and then why he used a super diode for rectification, turned into a DC signal. So I did spend a lot of time on that and using LT Spice, and then the LED lighting, I spent a lot of time. So there
Well,
was,
there's
I
been
was
some
doing all,
crossover too. I think there's been some interesting crossover from what you're doing. You're kind of doing analog stuff as well, so that's been good.
yeah, there's been a lot of crossover. All of the stuff I wouldn't have understood unless I'd taken your stuff. So that's been part of it. Just kind of like it's like to me, it's ongoing. Just now, it's like 5,000 ways to use an op amp apparently.
Oh yeah, oh, there's more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, Pedro, how you doing? Yep, you're muted. Muted. Muted.
Uh, there I am. I'm 2 weeks
Yeah.
behind,
Okay.
kind of.
So,
I,
what
I
I
have
remind me where that is. So you had been
I
the one who
bodged the
did
crystal.
the foot for the tiptoe method,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I finished bodging the crystal last night, so
Okay.
I'm a bit late. I tried. I was having issues on the 5-volt rails
Okay.
for the current source. It's a bit noisy.
Okay.
On the datasheet, they suggested using a pair of capacitors on the 5-volt rail, one tantalum and one ceramic, 10 micro and 100 nanofarads.
Yeah. Right.
So I did that too, and now I have stacked components.
Okay.
It helped a bit. The ultra high frequency noise, it's gone, but the spikes are still there because
Yeah.
it's from the power supply that's making noise, and I still haven't figured it out. Maybe it requires some load to smooth out or something like that.
Well, the easy solution, I think, unfortunately, is switch out your ATX power supply.
Yeah,
That's usually the answer.
yeah, yeah,
So actually, it's interesting. I was talking to someone else about that solution as well. You know, the 10 microfarad is for bulk storage, right? So that's, in case the part has this instantaneous draw on the line, right? It won't actually make the 5 volts droop. It'll just pull it out of that 10 microfarad capacitor. The zero point 0.1 microfarad or the 100 nanofarad, that's actually for the high frequency transient noise. Actually, not from, if it's coming in from the power supply line, you're still going to get that, but it's actually meant for if it happens from the part itself. So any high frequency stuff, basically you want to decouple that as close as possible to the pin. You'll see this combination on a lot of parts where you have a large bulk capacitance and then a lower value, meant for higher frequencies to basically just give it a really quick path to ground right at the pin. So that's good. That's good you did that. But yeah, I think unfortunately it's going to be
yeah. It's the power
swapping
supply.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And you had done the pins. You had gone through and you actually programmed all the pins with
Yeah. I
for
did that.
the ghost power.
One at a time. It took me quite a while, but
Yeah.
it's I will do a sketch and post it
Okay.
to sense the the voltage on the divider. If it goes below 1 volt, we have a
Uh-huh.
minimum of 1 point something. Shut down everything. Then only
Oh,
and
okay.
keep in a loop, like
I
die
see.
there, everything off, and if it
Yeah.
comes back again, I'll
So
reset
the
the
Arduino
everything
is going to
somehow.
act as is going to have a power monitor loop
Yeah.
effectively. Yeah,
I'm
that's
thinking
smart.
about that.
Okay.
I'm thinking about that,
Okay.
but the time has gone, and I have little time to do it. So
Yeah.
maybe this week I'll manage to save up some time and do it and start
Yep.
testing
Yeah.
the digital twin, the deck.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this week we've been the most recent weeks. Obviously, we've had some people are behind still, and that's okay. There's still time to catch up. This is the last of the Hangouts, but definitely not the last of the course interaction. So if you've been watching this week, got the LEDs up and running after some stupid swapping of the anode cathode stuff. So the PWM works on that, at least on my board. Obviously the dry desert air here is making my nose bleed. The the inductor, actually, that was interesting that the inductor, actually, we had done a custom footprint for that, but somewhere along the way, I think that what ended up happening was the footprint we designed to was actually the footprint, the actual pad size on the part, right? So we had designed it for the pad size instead of a wider footprint. That's really what we would have wanted to do, so that you actually have room to solder and everything else. So it ended up being a difficult soldering job because you had to heat the actual inductor, and it was hard to get the heat and the solder underneath it and stuff like that. So I ended up using hot air on that, but there were some people that were able to use just a soldering iron in order to do that. So other than that, there were some other ADC connection points. So we needed to ground the lower side of the reference. We needed to jumper the low side input for channel 0 and channel 1 as well, or else you weren't going to get any readings. But when that stuff's all done, you should actually start being able to get readings into the ADC and stuff like that. Like I said, this is the end. This is the last Hangout, but definitely not the last video. I mean, I'm still going to be adding videos to the module 8, as more stuff gets built out. So, what kind of questions do we have this week? All right, well, I'm going to be able to go watch some World Cup if this is no questions. Let's also go over, where is this? So I'm going to share my screen here. I thought we could also go over the, here we go. So I'm going to start screen share here. And can you guys see that? Okay. Yes, you can see that. Good. Okay. So I'm going to go to forums in the last week. The other thing I wanted to go to was the added on stuff, right? So what we want to add to version 2. That's another thing that we've been adding to and going over and stuff like that. Here's the forums for this week. It must be a couple weeks back, but basically we've been adding in updates and fixes. Right, here we go. Features and fixes for version 2. Okay, so and basically, going down the list, we can see that a lot of this stuff is stuff we've talked about throughout the course, right? So James suggested doing dual DACs. Ilko says fixing up the voltage divider. Positioning. Dan suggested positioning. I had suggested actually we had talked about future stuff as well in terms of developing this into the future, possibly moving away from Arduino. Well, one way I was thinking we could do that is actually just going over to a pure SPI bus. So now instead of having digital outputs, you just write to a SPI GPIO expander. You write a SPI command that flips a bit high or low, and then basically we can interact simply through the SPI bus like that. So that's another thing we could do as well. So yeah, that's another thing we can do this week, as time goes on, as we start forming groups as well. We'll be forming into groups for the next version. I know that my coming week as well, when I'm not working on the board and code for the board and stuff like that, I'll be also starting to dig back into the version of, or starting to develop version 2 of the board in KiCad as well. So this is kind of the time to start looping back around.
I wanted to ask about this. I haven't put it on there, but what are your thoughts about using maybe a bit larger SMTs? Either at least not using was it the 0603s for the LED or?
Oh yeah, that's definitely doable. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, or use all 1205s. I don't know, because we had space on the board. 0805s, 1206, I guess. But we had space on the board, and it seems that we just use smaller parts than we needed to, or is it just like I guess after Dan's comment, I probably am being a wuss about it all, but at least staying away from the very small ones, because that was hard for at least me when I was just starting to learn how to solder.
Yeah, no. That is a very good point. I think that interaction came from going back and forth with the the parts that we pulled from DigiKey and
Yeah.
everything else like that. When you start searching by lowest cost as well, it's going to usually default to the the most common size part. And you're going to probably pay a premium for like a 1206 LED. You're going to pay a premium right now, not so much for capacitors and resistors. But I think yeah, definitely 0805. We could definitely move up to that, make that the standard size, except for stuff where we really need more power.
Yeah, the 0805 is a great size. It's just once it got smaller than that, it's just hit or miss. It's pretty difficult.
Right. Well, we could do an 0402 gauntlet if we wanted to. We just have it as a test. Yeah. You'll all get there eventually. With hot air, anything is possible.
Yeah, that's true. We're going to think that way.
Yeah. Yeah, so I do hope people continue to add to this. We'll start moving into another version. Now, we do want to also, continue to develop for the software, because that's usually when a lot of this stuff comes out, right? So as you're trying out features, one of the other videos I posted here in the last week was interaction testing, right? That's usually where you're going to find a lot of issues, between modules, and trying to get everything working together is just as hard as getting one thing working. That's actually a whole other task. And the more you can try and tease out all of the issues to start with, the better off you'll be.
It'd be nice to have two levels actually in that. One would be a regression test where you just push a button and it goes through all the tests from before, so that a change you make, you can see if it went down, and then the second, went and affected other parts of the hardware or software. And then the second one, of course, is the framework one, where you could poke around, kind of like where Tommy was going with his. Yeah,
right, exactly. Yeah, and regression testing is very important for that kind of stuff. It can get very time-consuming very quickly for hardware, because you'll have to, you have to swap out, unless you have like a test rig where you actually have like switched-in resistors and stuff like that. It can get quite burdensome quite quickly, but it is worth it.
I wondered about that. If you were to make 100 of those boards, for example, say you were, a small business and now you want to sell Bench Buddy, or you're doing it because you're a nice person. I don't know. Anyway, how would you then end up testing it so that you're saying, okay, when I give you a board, I'm pretty sure it's working as best it can.
Right. Usually, I would do that with. You could do a couple different things. You could do like a bed of nails testers, which looks like a bunch of test pins kind of sticking up. You basically fit the board into that, and you have test pins on the back side of it, and then it can run through tests. You can also do a more expensive version of that, where you actually have what's called a flying prober, where it basically it knows it holds the board in a jig, and then basically it puts probes at different points on the board, and it's kind of like a machine version of DMM testing, right? So if you're doing continuity testing all over the place, you can do that but just with a machine, like a robot, effectively, and you're testing between different points. And there's videos of that kind of thing on YouTube as well. But I think
that to me seems like a perfect add-on project to the Bench Buddy, a jig test.
Yeah, if I was going to do a jig test for it as it is today, the flying prober is definitely not it. But yeah, putting test points on the bottom and allowing for a bed of nails tester, or even just you put it into a fixture, and then the last step you do is actually soldering on the terminal block connectors, right? You leave that till the end, so you don't have to actually sit there and screw things down and unscrew things. That's really what I would probably go for, instead of doing the other stuff. So yeah, that's definitely another path we can go down, and as we continue to develop the Bench Buddy, that'll definitely be part of it. So, Brooke, Pedro, you guys have any questions? If not, I'm going to start asking you guys questions.
Well, I have a question. Look, they're both on mute, so you're giving me more opportunity, guys. Bad idea. Yeah. But besides testing, what about performance? It'd be nice to have a set of upper-lower bounds, almost like a data sheet for the Bench Buddy that says, okay, PWM should act this way, this should act that way.
Yeah.
And then you run it through it, and you get these results. I mean, so that's another example of where, you know, we can all help have that come together. But, you know, I think I look at the two sides that are kind of lacking right now besides, you know, version 2, and that would be testing from a regression to a automation component. And then the second one would be performance and characterizations of the different components on the board.
Yeah, right. And that is what you would do. So if assuming you had no test fixtures, oftentimes if you had people you know, sitting there and testing these things, you would have that, right? You have a checklist and you go down this, what is the voltage here? It should be, you know, from 1.004 to 1.008. Is it in that range, pass or fail, right? Right, the voltage here, and then you could track that kind of thing. But as you start to automate it, you also, you know, roll that into the futures type stuff as well.
Yeah.
I'm just looks like the Q&A app is now up. I'm seeing some people that did not get the invites. I did send a bunch of invites as well, so people should double check the invites. I'm going to resend these one more time, so we might have some people jump in here. Jim is asking the Q&A side of things as well. So he asked, if we end up not populating some parts, can you explain why they are not needed? And so I'm guessing this is along the lines of like the diodes as well. So those diodes on the LM317, LM3C7, we have not populated those yet. Really, that's just a matter of that's kind of a long-term, you know, protection type of scheme. We've been a controlled environment so far, so we definitely should put those down still as we move towards, you know, everyday use of a bench buddy, right? It's going to be a little bit rougher than when we're very controlled. If you get in the habit of using something like the bench buddy, you're going to get comfortable with it and basically get sloppy with it. At least that's how I am. I don't know if anyone else will, but yeah. So that's definitely something we'll have to do there. Other things though, like other parts that were not needed, I can definitely still go through and make a video of this. But you know, parts that are like ground connection points, right, and test points and stuff like that. It's always good to have these in there, but you don't necessarily need to populate everything there. So that's usually why there's something there if it's not populated. Looks like James is asking, has anyone worked with the TAC input? The fan I used had EMF spikes up to 30 volts peak to peak. Wow. I have not looked at the TAC input yet. So that's basically, the TAC is basically, most fans have a pulse train output. You know, basically as the fan goes past the point, usually it sends a pulse, and then you can use that as a feedback mechanism to the circuit. We had also used had a pad there so that you could ground out that input to have another ground input on that connector. So I have not used the TAC input yet, so I don't know if anyone else has, but that can be another thing that we do going forwards as well. What about other questions from the crowd here? I know we're sorry, I'm kind of playing between the two, the Q&A side of things and the still trying to get people invited here. I'm not sure why it's not inviting people.
Yeah, Dave is asking for an invite on
Yeah.
a different email.
Yeah, I'm trying it. I'm trying. Well, it's my turn for questions then. So, you know, going forwards, obviously we're nearing the end of the course, at least the course proper, not necessarily the development of the bench buddy. But what could have been better? What stunk? Let me have it. Come on.
I really liked it. I like the style of it. It's a new way of learning.
No, Mark, I want negative here. Give me some negatives. Brooke, come on. Pedro, anyone?
Well,
Can't find any.
first off, I'd like to change how I viewed learning, which was, you know, this approach of just looking over a mentor's shoulder versus kind of getting something that works. So at first I thought, oh, all these things not working in the wrong footprint, that's like darn frustrating. And I thought in some ways, to your point, it was a good practice to do all that. And
Yeah.
your humility when things went wrong was definitely fun too. So I think the testing to me could, knowing up front what the values for the different components would be on outcomes so that I could go in with expectations of what to test out and see whether I was successful or not.
Uh-huh.
That would have been a big help, at least for me.
Okay. So that probably relates to the fact that I hadn't really done, I hadn't gotten anything up and working before everybody else started, right?
It could, except for the fact that you had a very strong visual with what you expected the bench buddy to be and what each component would be.
Hmm.
So shooting out expectations up front and then refining them would have helped me a lot because then since I didn't quite know where you were going until you went there, it would have given me a better, in other words, there's that saying, begin with the end in mind. And you
Right.
definitely had an end in mind. It was just that since I personally don't have your background, I had no idea of really understanding the end you had in mind for the PWM or the fan. It's just like, I had to watch all the videos and then go back and say, oh, okay, that's what Chris is getting at. Now I can watch them again.
I see. That's really good feedback actually, because that kind of ended up being the helpful thing I think when we were doing the layout as well. Those summary videos ended up being
Yeah.
helpful because we did kind of see the whole thing first, versus waiting until the very end.
Now, the other thing that was really good in the 1A you did more of was the sketch explanations.
Hmm.
And those to me, because you're making some inferences about how the AC signal should be working. You have all this acquired knowledge, and you're assuming some things about we're all coming from different levels.
Hmm.
So the sketch explanations were a great way, or pointers to videos, which you did do for soldering. What was it? Cross soldering, but more of that, which is what you did more in 1A, would have
Okay.
been helpful too. But I think what happened in 1B is you got exceptionally busy. What with all the travel and things you had to do too, so it was a whole different ballpark.
Right. Well, that's the thing to avoid though then too, right? So okay, Pedro, what were you saying? I think I cut you off earlier. Sorry.
No, no, no. It was just fine. I guess the pace was good. It is. I am not from not new to electronics, but definitely not an expert. So I had some blinking LEDs on an Arduino before. Yes,
Yeah.
I did that, but not a huge electronic background.
Yeah.
Um, I managed to follow the course to all the way through. Uh, my background comes more from the Dave Jones EV blog, so the, I know what was an op amp and what is a resistor. That I know, but it is a very good course for me, and I know more about electronics now, and I can solder small parts.
That's right. So do you feel more but all of you, I mean, do you feel more confident now, like to go out and build your own boards and everything like that now as well?
Sure, sure.
What was
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, good. I mean, if nothing else, if that's all that came out of this, like that's it's a long path to get there. But I remember how scared I was the first time, right? You just don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
and uh, and so I think even just having a group to talk to, assuming I wasn't even here, right? Like if it was just the group to talk to, having that common focus, I think is really interesting. So
Yeah, the group thing was phenomenal. I forgot one thing too was on the equipment list, and I've mentioned that in past Hangouts.
mhm.
Knowing what would be optionally extremely helpful because I bought a soldering iron and
Yeah,
I then saw what Brooke was doing and I bought a hot, the all-in-one hot air with soldering iron. And I'm much happier with that one, but now I'm left with the soldering iron plus the hot air plus soldering iron.
yeah,
And you're wavering on, okay, what's the least expensive, but some of our goals isn't the least expensive. It's to learn as much as we can. Because ultimately, if I know how to solder or teach a man to fish, then I don't have to have somebody else and pay them the difference for that soldering gun just to do one board.
Right, right.
It's paid for itself already.
Definitely. So Brooke, you've seen it from the. So Brooke was part of the beta group as well. So you've seen it from the beginning. What's your thoughts across all that? I mean, you've been there since what? It's almost been a year now, right?
Sounds about right. I'd say
Yeah.
for me, probably the equipment thing that Margaret just brought up. I think it's kind of tough because I know your goal is to make this accessible, kind of at a lower budget, which I think is good. But the reality is that I've had times where using the Gabletronics has been interesting and nice, and it fits in the shot real well when I got to do videos.
Yeah.
But the reality is that even that cheap Rigol is just way easier to use, generally speaking. I mean, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but having to tap through those menus all the time, that gets kind of
yeah.
old. But
Yeah.
but it is cheap. It does work. So for somebody who, and that's why we kind of talked when you started this session about equipment costs, and I kind of suggested maybe you need an entry level, and then if you've got extra budget, just so that way the people who do have the extra budget don't spend twice. They can just go,
right.
you know what, I'll go for the higher level item, because I don't think you do anything that excludes somebody with the lower level stuff. But for the people who do have a little more money to spend, it actually makes the class kind of that much more pleasant for those you're at that level. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I'd say is I'm one of those people that prefers to kind of know what your goal is, and Margaret kind of touched on this, on each thing that you do. And so that way I can kind of try to run my face into the wall a few times and then see how you solved it. So like on the electronic side, I'm a total noob. I'm like Pedro or probably Margaret. I've watched stuff on YouTube. When I was a kid, I had those little spring bendy boards. You push the little wires in, the little kits. So I don't have any college background on any of this, but I really enjoy, like, if you would start out a session and say, what we're going to do here is we're going to make the DAC talk to blah blah blah, and this is our goal, and maybe you might have to tell a little bit about parts, and then let me loose with my soldering iron and see what happens, and then I can go watch the video after that. So like at the beginning of the video, you would tell that. That's, I think, kind of was what your summary might have been kind of geared towards. Then I could go watch the video and figure out what I screwed up, especially since I've got 3 boards to work with.
Right.
And the same for programming too. I mean, the programming stuff, the only way I knew what it was your goal was is to watch the entire programming video, whereas if you had said, here's the goal, we're going to use the DAC and we're going to make the LEDs blink, or we're going to make this signal show up on this pin, then I could have been like, okay, see if I can do that, and then I'll go back and see how Chris solved it.
Right. When I talked about, that's kind of fluctuated over time, and I think when you brought up as well, the schedule as well kind of ended up impacting things. I've been kind of just trying to get to that point, getting it done each week and stuff like that. But that always was kind of the idea that you need that struggle, right? The struggle is where you actually learn this stuff. You're not going to learn it unless you're struggling against it. And so I think, that especially in session 1B, it's turned into more, here's how I did it, instead of you go try it, you go discuss it, go see how Chris did it. Because it's not the way I'm doing it. It's not the only way to do it, obviously. And we've seen that, especially with the 3901, right? There's been a lot of different ways to do that kind of thing, and it's been interesting, especially seeing these different iterations across, and you end up getting more options there as well, right? You get more.
That was a blast. And it goes to the point that there's not one technique for every single thing you want to learn. But Brooke brought up a really good. So I love the 3901. I thought that was terrific. It was actually almost like a series on TV. 24 Me 3901.
Jack Bauer soldering.
Yeah. What was Jack Bauer doing?
Where are the satellites?
Yeah, that's right.
Tell me how to solder this part.
The thing that Bert touched on, and I agree with, but maybe there's 2 levels of it. In the week introduction that you do, what was interesting is I never had a real picture of where you were going.
Right.
And maybe partly I'm a visual learner, and partly because I've done some circuits, but I'm no expert. So it's like, okay, yeah, I sort of get where you're going here, but to Brooke's point, at the end of this week, we'll have finished the area that we call the fan. And what that would enable us to do with the bench buddy is to control a fan, and we can do that with the PWM and things like that. So you get kind of like the use scenario, and then on the videos go, okay, here is the part in the fan area where we're going to do the PWM and blah 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 and that, and you kind of like segue it out. But at some point, I'm also learning why the heck I'm doing this at a user perspective.
Right, right.
And it sounds like that from what I said, because I said this several times, I'm the only person that doesn't know what they're doing when it comes to the user. Everybody else is quite clued in, so they're probably rolling their eyes. But, but I don't know. For me, it would have been nice to say at the beginning, at each week, okay, we're doing the fan module. Remember the fan module blows a fan or whatever,
Right, right.
Something as dumb as that, I know.
And Chris, don't misunderstand, Chris. I would never change session 1B because if you had tried to do all the things we're talking about now, you would never have gotten started. That would have been kind of pointless. But so I'm glad we did what we did, and maybe you'll learn from this. Maybe you'll change some things. Maybe you don't. But I'm not criticizing in a way where I'm saying this really made session 1B bad. I think it was really good experience, and I think by you getting out early and doing something not a lot of people are doing and getting some feedback, that means just your next session can be that much better or different or whatever.
Right. Well, and I think what it ultimately comes down to is that, looking at how session 1A was different from 1B, 1B was kind of like everybody's coming along in the beta, right? So session 1A had the beta where I was making the videos, and then during session 1A, I was making those summary videos after the fact, right? And I think ultimately that's what needs to happen, where there's, there's always that the work's done first, at least how I did it is done, right? And I capture all that stuff as I'm going through. But then as I'm working through with the group, right, I'm making summary videos, I'm making clarification videos. That's what a lot of the sketch explanations were in 1A, because a lot of those the doing it videos that I had already made were done. So I think that's kind of the key, is to have all of the getting it done videos ready to go, and then I kind of follow along, I build along, and everything else like that. So.
Well, I want to second what Burke said and emphasize it, that this was the best learning experience I've ever had. And all these things that we're talking about are because you asked to hear any potential, quote-unquote negative, or what we would do a little differently. I don't even say that they have to. If anybody asks me, and that I would recommend this in a heartbeat, to the point that I would prefer you just come out with a class, Billy be damned with all the other formatting stuff we're talking about. It's just like sugarcoating compared to even, each time you did it. The stuff you taught or gave us was so invaluable, and you particularly, how you delivered it in such a humble and we're working together way, and we had these hangouts, and we had the group, really made it work. You can laugh, but to the point about the group and how you interacted with us, it's far different and means that we don't need all of that coddling that we would have, all the background stuff. So it's better for you to jump in and just do it than to do all the other stuff.
Right, right. Yeah, that makes sense. And sorry, Wes is asking in the Q&A as well. And I wanted to say, I know it's kind of late, but I just posted a link on the Google Plus page as well. I posted the actual Hangout link. I found out that might be a way people can join in as well. I don't know. But anyways, Wes is saying instead of making like a how to assemble a kit, right, which is how a lot of this stuff is done, kind of went through and followed the problems and stuff. And I think the problems, I was embarrassed by a lot of this stuff, but it's good. I think if it all would have worked, I think we would have been a lot worse off, probably, right? I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but the bodging is kind of fun, right? Margaret, you brought up humility. It's mostly I was confused.
No, I don't think so. People handle things differently, as if you're supposed to know everything. And I loved it. Was a real good learning experience for me to know that there's a lot of experimentation. And just yesterday I kind of burnt up one of the ends of my BMM thingy because I had it at at the wrong setting. And just learning those things and knowing that other people do them was a huge learning experience in its own right.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Well, Wes has finally made it. He made it. Yeah. So Wes, welcome to the call as well. Oh, we can't hear you though. That didn't come through. So sound's not coming through, but yeah, okay. Let's see. Let's see if there's any other Q&A as well. That looks like that's good. Wes, is your thing working now? Maybe you could try it again. Nope, sorry. Dave jumped in as well. Hello, Dave, as well. So,
I think it might work now.
oh, it does work now. So, well, what Dave and Wes, you guys just got here. What kind of thoughts do you have? I mean, you can talk about your progress, or you can ask questions, or we could talk more about what the course problems are. James had it as well.
Yeah, your link worked. I didn't get the invite until just recently.
Okay. Yeah. So thoughts at the end of session 1B. I mean, what else could have been better?
I guess having the videos broken down into smaller chunks. The long ones were just that, a little bit long. Maybe make it down to little digestible chunks. So when I'm doing my progress, it makes it easier to go back to where I think you said something, and then I could find that video quicker because there's not a video index.
Right.
But if you break it down into smaller chunks, it makes it easier to find which one I need to go back to.
Okay. So if it's like, soldering R25 and R26 kind of thing, that would be a video.
Well, not that granular, but maybe where the component selection stuff, maybe have it, okay, this one's going to be resistors, and then just have a discussion topic on that, and then when you're selecting transistors, just focus on that, and then you could explain where am I biased towards these components and why I don't like using these products because I've had bad experiences.
Right. Okay. Okay. So let's get a progress report. Dave, Wes, how you guys doing?
I've gotten the LED module together and still haven't got a chance to test that though.
Okay.
Just been a busy week, but also savoring the last moments of the course. Like that last piece of cake, Don't eat it too quick.
Right. Well, the videos aren't done yet, so I brought my I'm traveling. I got my boards. I got it all through security. Brought an ATX power supply and a carry-on bag. So that was an interesting experience. Dave, how about you? Nope, and he's gone. James, how about your progress? How's your progress going?
You mentioned something about my capture of the SPI signals, MISO and MISO. Okay, I got the connections swapped on the scope, but you said it was switching. What did you mean by that?
Switching. Oh, I was saying that it was the thing you were showing was 0xFF, right? That's the stuff you were showing there, and it looked like it was reading that as 0xFF, but there was noise spikes. Basically, it should have just been flat across, right? If it was going to be all Fs, it should be all ones. So that's basically what I was meaning, and so that's why I was questioning if that was actually pulling the correct signal, or if it was possibly just a noisy signal, and it was reading it as FF.
And also, I tried getting the Gatetronics scope. I have an Adafruit level shifter,
Okay.
and it it works. I had the problem with the logic analyzer, the mode sweating or settings.
Okay.
I think it's is it positive going clock and the I think it was a QPA or CPA and
Yeah, CPOL and CPHA. Yep.
so I wasn't quite sure if I had that set up correctly.
Okay. So you're just saying because of the translation, like if it was reading the actual the bit pattern readback.
Yeah, and then it has in the SPI decoder, and it lists out the hex values, and I wasn't quite sure if I had that set up right. I guess essentially what I need is a template to say this is what I should expect with the program that you had running.
Yeah.
And then I could do a sanity check, say, okay, my circuit's working like it's supposed to.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, there could be a good test program in there too, just like writing out, like just blindly writing out SPI values and just kind of stepping up, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. You could expect to see that and see if it actually captures everything there. So yeah, I need to order some level translators as well. Probably not this coming week, but the week after that, I'll probably get back to that and actually do something like that as well. I tried the resistor at one point. You know, the Gametronics manual says 3K resistors will work, but that did not work for me. So I'm not sure what he was expecting there.
Well, you could actually have the level translator as part of the bitch buddy itself. It's just, you know, if you have a peripheral that needs 5 volts, okay, it shifts it to 3.3 or vice versa. Basically, it's just some resistors in a MOSFET.
Yeah. Okay. Dave, now that I asked you last time if you were that you dropped off.
Hey, yeah, my headphone jack appears to have failed. So I'll just make sure to mute myself often.
Okay. Well, how's your progress? That's what I meant to ask you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I missed that part. Sorry. Yeah, it's going well. I've watched all the videos. I've done all the work except for the LED driver and the PTC and inductor upgrades. I need to make another order before I go any further. I need the LED driver inductor. I didn't have enough inductors in the beginning, so I used it as one of my like L4 inductors. I thought I had misordered, and then someone had corrected me later and was like, "Oh no, that's for the LED driver," and I was like, "Oh." Yeah. But everything's going pretty well. I am running into a small issue with the ADC. I'm able to write config data to it and read it back, but I get a value of 0 for like everything. I'm not using the right crystal, however. I had a bunch of 14 megahertz crystals I found, and I think I'm setting the divider right, but I'm not sure. So I've been checking and double checking and playing with that. I'm trying to figure out how to tell if the crystal's working. It seems like when I put my scope on it, I get all kinds of weird stuff. I don't know if I'm disturbing it because it's sensitive or what's going on there.
Well, it looks like Wes had something to say about the 14 megahertz crystal. I saw him smirking as that.
Yeah, I had one of those that I had tried, and I think it's key to have the right load capacitances with the crystal to get it to oscillate. And I think for like a 14 megahertz, it'd be pretty small, like in the 10 picofarad range.
Yeah. Yeah, and looking at the scope, Dave, I'm not sure what kind of scope you have, but I think I put on my Rigol and I put on my Tech as well, and it's just like a 1.5 volt sine wave. That's what it should look like. That's what mine looks like at least. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you know what? I went up in capacitance, not down. I must have misread a video that I watched. What I'm getting are kind of like these weird, basically like a middle finger with all 4 fingers around it. So yeah, I'll try dropping the capacitance and see if that gets me anywhere. Otherwise, I'll just have to wait for the right crystal to come.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're making an order anyways, it might behoove you to throw in another part there.
I've used the megahertz crystal, and it's pretty strong. But I had to use a 16 picofarad caps.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good that people are trying different values as well. You know, it shows in the data sheet. You know, you can set it with the divider and all this other stuff as well. So it is possible to do that kind of thing.
I tried so many, I ended up adding a little socket, which isn't the best for straight capacitance and all, but
yeah. Well, it's ingenuity, I suppose. But yeah, I would be careful with socket crystals.
2 a.m. into the morning, nights in a row, you start getting a little punchy in the garage.
Yep, sounds right. So what about other thoughts about the course, questions, progress?
Well, I would go ahead.
Go ahead. Brooke, go ahead. When do you?
When James brought up the stuff about the videos being shorter, it made me recall something. In order to keep up, because it's kind of important, like to know when you're doing your chats and all that stuff. I've been just keeping up with the videos, even though my work is kind of behind. But one of the things that's a little challenging for me is to keep track of what videos I've watched versus the ones I haven't, and the ones I've actually done the work for. So I don't know if there's a way within the tools you're using for the video tracking to have like a yellow dot so I can say like watched, and then it makes the dot yellow, and finished it makes it green. I know this is goofy, Chris, but for me it'd help to track my status.
It's not goofy at all. It's just you have a lot of expectations of my ability as a webmaster. I should know by now, Brooke.
Dave said he'd do it.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it if you're an extra member, which is one of the reasons I decided to do extra. Is I download the videos onto my iPad, and there's this application called, I think it's Switch, but anyway, that I use, and that allows bookmarking. And the other thing about that is the bookmarks are searchable.
Oh, interesting.
So that's a nice way of doing it, because it would be it's adds a layer of sophistication, complication to Chris, but it really puts a value on, download the video, do what you want with it, and I can bookmark it any way I want. Then I can search the bookmarks and like look for op amp, or I could look for break key or whatever I want to. So that's the way I've been approaching that, because it's very valuable to have that. Plus, you can watch it at any speed. I can slow it up. I can go up to 3 times. I can go to 1.5 times. So there's a lot of extra features you would want in the video that would turn what Chris is doing into a high production that would get away from the course, that I think third parties have supported, but then that would cause you to probably shell out more for the course or whatever, but then again, it's worth it. I see it as a premium component, so I'm happy to pay for it.
Yeah.
And I do the extra too, but the video downloading won't work for me because Chris kind of goes with me everywhere I go. So sometimes he's on my phone, sometimes he's on my iPad, sometimes he's on my Android tablet, sometimes he's on my laptop. So the downloading thing doesn't work very well. Chris goes with me everywhere.
Calls you in your nightmares.
What's that?
Calls you in your nightmares.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Well, the iTunes works for me because I have the iPad and the iPhone, so I just use those two things. And like I'll be at the mall with my daughters, and I'll be sitting there waiting for them and watching a video on my iPhone. Funny as that is, and
Well, so on the subject of the site, that is definitely on my list of things that I'm going to be doing, as well as continuing on the Bunch Buddy as well. But definitely upgrading the site. Eventually, long term, obviously this is all WordPress based, but if Contextual Electronics keeps working, I would probably start looking at a custom solution, and then obviously all of this stuff would go into that. But I think that's probably 1 or 2 courses away yet. I need to refine the other stuff. I want to get the meaty, important stuff working first. So that's kind of the more important stuff.
So you're going to do your own content management system?
No.
Oh, God. Thank goodness.
Yeah. What were you going to say before?
No, there's a lot of good smaller videos that you've done over the course of session 1A and B, and it might be go back and find the ones that you feel like some of the sketchplanations or other nugget kind of videos, and maybe consider sharing those on YouTube on the Contextual Electronics channel, just to augment some of the stuff that you did with the getting to Blinky, just to give people a taste of, here's some of the stuff that you can learn, or that we dive into.
So that's another interesting point, and I want your guys' opinions about this. So I'm strongly considering releasing all the KiCad videos on YouTube, but I'm interested in your guys' opinion, because obviously it was part of the course, something you paid for. And I think from a course perspective, I think that's good marketing. But I think from a larger perspective as well, I'm interested in KiCad becoming more popular. Like I talked to TI the other day, and they're like, "Oh, we don't know what KiCad is." It's like you're Texas Instruments, like how do you not know what KiCad is? But so that's why I'm very interested in it. But again, I'm interested in what all of you think about. This is something you paid for. Would it hurt your feelings that now I just go and throw that part on YouTube? I feel like possibly that the actual course is the more important part. So, do you have any thoughts about that?
I don't care. I think that's a great idea. The challenge I actually have with KiCad is that the way that they're doing things, there's no real person in control of the versioning. And I think that's part of what Dave says, that I agree wholeheartedly. That the biggest challenge with KiCad is that it's not having any kind of leadership.
Well, and that's the other thing that would be part of that. So I just bought KiCad.info as well, and I'm thinking about starting up a forum there and making it more of an inclusive site just for that, for people finding builds and finding that kind of stuff, and basically helping the community, that kind of thing. Obviously, it's given me a lot, and I want to give back for that. So.
Yeah, I think that the KiCad community, they do have a vision for where they want to go. There's just not a corporation backing it, and I think that the stuff they're doing obviously is there's a lot of active developers and there's a lot of contributions, right? The one thing though that does happen, because it is a very active project, is some of the content you've done is already out of sync with the latest release, right? Yeah, and that's going to be the case for a project that is quickly moving, at least in terms of some of these tools. If you're doing a real commercial product, you'd probably buy a tool, freeze on a version, and you'd use that for the next year and a half, short of it having any major problems. Well, with open source, they're constantly evolving, right. And so it's the good and bad of that.
Yeah. Great example is like the footprint format's already changed, right? It's the .pretty is the new extension, which is first off a terrible name for footprint extension.
Some of the bugs that you had worked around in your videos, they've already been fixed, and I think some of that may have been because you had a group of 200 people that come in and they're hitting on this thing and filing bug reports. I don't know. I filed a couple. I don't know if anyone else did.
Oh yeah. Oh great. That's great.
But I even submitted a patch that they accepted. So.
Very cool. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's another benefit of having software people interested in the course, is hopefully you guys can fix stuff.
Yeah, the developers also hang out on Freenode as well, so you can kind of get people up in the KiCad channel there as well.
Is it just pound KiCad? Is that the?
I believe it was. It's been a while since I was in there. I was having an issue, and they helped me. I cannot remember what it was.
Okay. I'll definitely check that out. Yeah, I have not been in that one. All right, guys. So I'm starting to get the stink eye from the wife over here in the hotel room. Any other final thoughts? She's laughing now.
As far as the video releasing goes, I mean, whatever makes the course more successful and might, enable future classes, I'm all for it. So whatever you think's going to work, go for it. I think a lot of the videos in session 1A, like especially the first week, even the ones where you were recommending other people's videos, I mean, that might even be worth putting out there. And then also when people start like 1A or 1B, it kind of lets them get a head start. I know in the beginning I was like raring to go, and I like kind of didn't have enough wood to burn, and then towards the end I was overwhelmed. So
to kind of stretch it forward towards the beginning of the course.
Yeah,
Okay. That's great. That's great advice. That's great advice. Okay. Any other thoughts? I mean, we can always, if we need to, we can always do another hangout. I say it's the last hangout for the course, not the last hangout for Chris. So, and especially as we're developing the bench buddy more, we can talk more about this kind of stuff. Okay. Well, thank you for letting me survive, and thank you all for being part of the course. I really do appreciate it, and obviously we'll talk more on the forums and elsewhere.
Hey Chris, will you send out some sort of emails or something like that if you're when and if you offer another course?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So my email list, the regular email list on the site has been pretty dormant. I think the last one I sent was in January, but that will be picking back up as well. So
Okay.
cool. All right, yeah, and the digest emails will keep going on as well. So that's another good way to keep up. I'll post blogs and stuff like that as well. So cool. I'll see you guys in the forum.
Thank you.
See ya.
Yeah. Thank you.